Right, welcome back to the channel everyone, and I'm sad to say that it's probably the final couple of days with the Vosges. She's going back tomorrow and I've just had a fantastic time riding this motorcycle. And I wanted to talk about a broader point, and people always write this in the comments. They always say they don't like bikes made in China for a variety of reasons. So the reasons usually include 1, build quality, 2, parts availability, service, dealerships, etc., and then occasionally you get the odd person who has political objections to buying a motorcycle made in China. On point number 1, I think that these bikes these days are as good, if not better quality than the European and Japanese counterparts. Obviously, we're talking about within the equivalent price point, so we're not comparing this Vosges to a £30,000 Ducati, for example. However, I think if the Chinese bikes still offer that bargain feeling, that lower price point, whilst retaining the quality, then it's all good. However, if they go ahead and raise their prices in line with the European and Japanese bikes, then there's no sort of like feeling of an advantage of getting more for your money. So I think they need to be careful about pricing. But with respect to the quality, I mean, I've got all quality components on here. The fit and finish is brilliant. And as far as longevity, I've ridden one of these bikes of Vosges for 10,000 miles and there was no problem at all. So I think we can kind of refute the fact that this type of motorcycle is in any way substandard or poor quality. Okay, so I forgot a few key things when talking about the value proposition of Chinese motorcycles. Most important thing to mention is that not all Chinese brands are equal, and made in China is not necessarily a bad thing in itself. But I'm going to break down now what I think is the brand you should look for. Now, I think it's the Chinese manufacturers that design and manufacture bikes in China and then export them to other parts of the world. They're the brands which I think put forward the best possible product. That would be the likes of CF Moto, with partnership with KTM, be the likes of Vosges, which we've got in the video, which produce engines for BMW, and it'd be the likes of Zontes, perhaps at the lower end of the biking spectrum, lower entry point in the capacities and the price points. Zontes bikes, up close and personal, are really nice. Now, if you contrast that with some of the bikes which are built either in European countries at a low price point, but they are buying in all the componentry from China and assembling it here in the UK or European countries, those bikes I feel are actually a step down in quality. It's almost better to buy one of the brands that's designed in China, manufactured in China and exported, and they keep quality control higher than perhaps some of these bikes like the likes of Mutz or Bullet, for example, or Blue Rock it's now called, where they assemble components that are really the bottom of the barrel, and then those bikes seem to deteriorate more, don't last as long, and they have more reliability issues than the likes of Zontes, CF and Vosges. So I'm more of a fan of these bikes which are sort of straight up Chinese manufactured and designed in country. Okay, let's go back to the video. Now the second point which people talk about is the servicing and parts availability, and that's a point which I think perhaps has some validity. You have to have a bike which has a fruitful supply of parts, but it also needs dealerships. So if you're not going to service it yourself, you've got to be able to go to a dealer, and with the warranty, if you have any issues, you've got to take it to a dealership. So when I bought my Vosges, I'm based in Worcester in the Midlands, and there was a dealership an hour and a half to the north of me, or an hour and a half to the south. I wanted the bike, so I still went ahead and bought it, but that was a bit of a predicament. So you need to make sure that the bike actually has a base, some support network nearby. Now, we're quite lucky in the fact that the Vosges are now distributed by MotoGP, so all of the dealerships that they bring on as part of their existing network for brands like Royal Enfield, of all things, you're going to get that support. So I think MotoGP importing Vosges is a great step forward for the brand, and it's good for MotoGP as well, because bikes like this are just quality things to have in your product lineup. The final point is this kind of political aspect to it, and some people have written comments about that, saying that, oh, the Chinese Communist Party wants to take over the world, etc., etc. I'd never give any money to them. I think that all countries, I have to be careful here because I don't want to get too political in this channel. I really don't like motorcycle channels getting political, but just to reference specifically this point about China taking over the world, it's probably as far away from their geopolitical strategic goals as you could imagine, is some kind of global domination. I mean, in any measure, China does not have the desire or capability to do a takeover of the world. If you compare number of aircraft carriers, number of overseas bases, their strategic weapons capability, they just have, everything is a lot smaller, an order of magnitude smaller than, say, the United States or NATO. They don't have a blue water navy, for example. They don't have the capability to take over the world or project power to other countries. That's just a fact. How would China do anything other than address some legitimate security concerns in its own backyard, which is the South China Sea? So all these people writing, I say all, there's not that many, but the people who are writing comments saying, oh, I'm scared of China taking over the world. China's main priority is to look after its emerging middle classes and make sure they don't rebel against the existing Xi Jinping government. They don't have any. It doesn't benefit them. There's no added advantage for them to initiate some kind of war or takeover of the West. It would just be the worst decision they could make. Talk about economic ties as well. So let me just address that point. These bikes should not be discriminated against because of some kind of government perception that people have about the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, no government is perfect, but on our side of the fence, we got the WEF, the IMF, the European Central Bank, the World Health Organization. We got NATO creeping. So we've got our fair share of sort of suspicious intra or supranational authorities, which are probably up to no good. So anyway, back to motorcycles. That's just to make a point. I don't think that we should be judging so harshly. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is Royal Enfield's new Himalayan 452. Honestly, I'm not excited about this bike at all. I think it's been overhyped by the Royal Enfield. I think they've overhyped it in the marketing. There's so much build-up for this motorcycle, like it's going to be the best small capacity adventure bike ever. And I just think they've overdone it. They've overhyped the marketing. I also think Royal Enfield, and I love Royal Enfield, I still miss my Meteor 350, but I think they were onto a bit of a roll when they had the Meteor and the Interceptor and the Super Meteor, and they were expanding the 650 twin platform and the J Series 350 single. And now I think with the Bullet launch, that was kind of a bit flat. They hyped the hell out of it, and it was basically a classic 350 with a different seat. It's like they've achieved great success, and now almost they're resting on their laurels. They're just happy to propagate out the existing engines into a Scrambler 650, a Shotgun 650, to add to the Interceptor, the Continental, the Super Meteor. They're just going to pump out two new bikes with slightly different chassis design, suspension, all of the trim pieces are going to be different. Essentially, it's going to be the same. And with the Himalayan, okay, I give you, it's a new engine, but it's going to be more expensive. It's not going to be your budget accessible Royal Enfield like the Himalayan 411 was. You've got a TFT display on there, you've got riding modes, you've got the navigation system that links to your phone, you've got LED lights. So how's all that going to work when it goes wrong? If you had an incandescent bulb, you can just whip the bulb out and replace it when you need to. I also don't even like the look of it. to be honest. I think it looks too insect-like, but I didn't really like the Himalayan 411 that much either. I thought that had a place. It was utilitarian and rugged looking, but the new bike just looks a bit too sort of spindly and weird for me. So I actually think that Royal Enfield have shot up with an amazing introduction of new motorcycles, an amazing pace of introduction of new bikes. But now I think it's kind of, they're consolidating and making incremental changes and evolutionary rather than revolutionary changes. And that, you can see that in the way the J series and the 650 Twin are being propagated out just to make money. Similarly, if you look at the sales of Royal Enfield platform, you can see the strategy behind it all, because owners were all buying the Meteor, sale, and then what they do is they transition over to the Classic, and then you'll see that numbers of the Meteor go down, owners trade in for the Classic numbers pump, and you get about bang, 150 a month here in the UK market anyway. And the same with the Interceptor. Interceptor drops off, Super Meteor takes up the baton, and they're just reselling essentially the same experience to owners who are trading back in their Royal Enfields. I think people buy Royal Enfields for a short space of time, trade them back in. So it's just generating more and more revenue by repropagating those same packages. With the Himalayan, let's see what price it comes in at. It's not a bike for me, to be frank. I think that I'd rather have the Triumph Scrambler 400X. I just think at least that's something a little bit different from Triumph. And the Himalayan is too techy. I don't know. I just don't like it, frankly. But let's see. Let's see what happens with it. I'm sure hundreds and hundreds of people will buy it each month, and it'll be a roaring sales success. And the final point for today's video is just some updates. So thank you to everybody who voted for Susie's jacket. We are keeping the RST jacket. I think it looks the best. You guys all think it looks brilliant. And so it just seemed to be a clear winner. She wore it actually this morning because my car's in for an MOT. Susie needed to be taken somewhere. So she hopped on the back of the Vosges and she wore a new jacket. And she even thinks it looks good with the pink sporty helmet. So we're on to a winner there. So thank you to everyone who voted. And the second little bit of an update is the weather's drawing in. I actually got soaked on the way over here, believe it or not. I'm drying off now in the sun, but I did get soaked over here. It is 6 degrees according to the bike's outside temperature gauge, and I was wearing my heated gloves today. I've actually got some new heated gloves coming. A company has kindly sent me some heated gloves to feature on the channel. I don't really do gear reviews or anything like that, but I am gonna I'm gonna wear the gloves because, well, I'll tell you all about it when they arrive. Maybe it'll be interesting now the weather's drawing in a bit, it's getting a bit colder. And the other update is we've actually got some saddlebags coming. Now obviously the BSA isn't here, but I need some saddlebags for the BSA Gold Star. And I just don't really want to spend $650 for the BSA bags and the racking system. So unless BSA send me some, I'm not going to fork out that much money. It's 1/10. It's actually, for me, because I bought my bike second hand, it's like 15% of the bike's value on the luggage system, which is just too much. So unless BSA want to do some marketing and send me some of the bags, and I'll fit them and see how I get on, feature them on the channel, could be a win-win, but no sign of that. So I'm going with a different option for the panniers. I don't think anyone will have these panniers. I'm being kindly sent them by a company. I really need them. I think they look good in the pictures, but let's see how they are when they are attached to the bike. So if you are interested in luggage for my BSA Gold Star, I know a couple of people commented on that, then I will be bringing some to the channel soon. Alright guys, well that's just a quick update from me. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.